If you've ever noticed that when something good starts happening in your life, you don't fully relax into it. You hesitate, you question it, you almost wait for something to go wrong. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside. You might still smile, still say you're happy, but internally there's a quiet distance. Like you're holding something gently, but not tightly, just in case you have to let it go. And most people don't even realize they're doing it because it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like being realistic. It feels like staying grounded. It feels like protecting yourself from disappointment. But underneath that, something deeper is happening. It often shows up in small ways. You finally meet someone kind, consistent, emotionally available, and instead of feeling safe, your mind starts scanning for what's off. You get an opportunity you've been waiting for, and instead of excitement, there's this subtle tension. Like you're not sure it will last. Even when things are going well, part of you stays cautious, detached, observing, not fully there. And that reaction usually isn't random, it's learned. At some point, your brain made an association. Good things don't stay. Or worse, good things come right before something goes wrong. So instead of fully trusting positive experiences, you learn to brace yourself inside them, not loudly, not consciously, quietly. Because trusting something good means risking the pain of losing it. And for a lot of people, that pain isn't unfamiliar. It's remembered. Maybe it looked like moments in your life where things felt stable and then suddenly changed, or times when you let your guard down and something or someone didn't meet you the same way. Or even growing up in an environment where calm didn't feel safe, where unpredictability was normal. In those situations, your brain doesn't learn to relax into good things. It learns to monitor them, to stay alert, to stay ready, to not get too attached. And over time, that becomes part of your identity. You become someone who doesn't fully trust happiness, not because you don't want it, but because part of you doesn't believe it's stable. And here's where it gets interesting. It's not really about trust in the good thing itself. It's about trust in what happens after. Because if you've experienced emotional unpredictability before, your brain doesn't just question the moment. It questions the outcome, the ending, the shift. So even when something feels right, your mind is already preparing for the version of reality where it doesn't last. Not to be negative, but to stay in control. Because control in this case doesn't mean changing what happens. It means not being caught off guard. It means not being surprised by pain again. And that creates a very specific pattern. You don't fully attach. You don't fully celebrate. You don't fully believe in the stability of what's good. Not because you're pessimistic, because you're protecting yourself from emotional whiplash. That's why sometimes people who seem calm and realistic on the outside are actually carrying a quiet expectation of loss on the inside. And that expectation shapes how they experience everything. They hold back just enough. They stay slightly guarded. They keep a part of themselves untouched because if they never fully lean in, they never fully have to fall. But the trade-off is subtle. You don't just protect yourself from pain. You also distance yourself from the full experience of something being good. Not completely. Just enough that it never feels entirely real, entirely safe, entirely yours. And the strange part is, you can genuinely want something and still not trust it when it arrives. Not because you're ungrateful, not because you're broken, but because your system learned that safety doesn't come from things going well. It comes from being prepared when they don't. So instead of trusting the moment, you trust your ability to handle its loss. And once you see that, a lot of your reactions start to make sense. The hesitation, the overthinking, the emotional distance during good times. It was never random. It was a pattern your mind built to protect you from something it remembers a little too well. And when you start noticing it, you begin to see how often you've been present, but not fully there. How often something was good, but part of you stayed waiting, not for joy, but for the shift. And that awareness alone changes how you see yourself. Because maybe it was never that you couldn't trust good things. Maybe you just learned very early on that they don't always stay.